It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Every time we cover this, I can't help but think about Daniel and his awesome slide cover. We should have brought it up, but there's an apex predator out there hunting. And it's, because we talk about what do we love? We love Roth IRAs. Yep. They're one of the most powerful retirement savings vehicles out there because they grow tax-free. Yep. That's right. You don't get a tax deduction on your contribution. However, once you contribute that money, once you invest that money, whatever it grows to become is completely tax-free when you pull it out in the future. And that's why, once again, I bring it back to compounding growth. If you put $1 in something when you're 20, especially a Roth IRA, and then you pull it out at retirement and it's worth the $88, think about the fact that 87 of the $88 grew completely tax-free. That's really powerful stuff. But we know the catch with this is the government only lets us put $6,000 a year into Roth IRAs. Well, there is what's called a mega backdoor Roth IRA that could push that number way up, way beyond. I'm talking about a factor of 10 on what you can put into these mega Roth IRAs.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is when you have a 401k, we're all familiar with pre-tax contributions. We put money in, we get a tax deduction. And then most of us are familiar with Roth contributions. We put money in, we don't get a tax deduction, but they grow tax-free. What you may not recognize is that some 401ks actually have a third investment option. And that contribution option is called an after-tax 401k contribution. It is different than doing a Roth contribution, where Roth and pre-tax are limited to $20,500 a year for those under 50. After-tax contributions don't have that same limit. You can actually contribute all the way up to the Section 415 limit of $61,000. So for folks who have high incomes and they have this type of strategy or this type of availability in their plan, they can do exactly what Brian is talking about, a mega backdoor Roth where they max out their salary deferral at $20,500. If they're high income, they're probably doing that pre-tax. And then their employer puts in some matching, some nominal number based on whatever their salary is. Well, then any difference that's left between that sum and $61,000, you can do an after-tax 401k contribution. Well, if all you do is the after-tax, you put the money in and the earnings grow tax deferred. Just like any other normal retirement account, when you go to pull it out, you would pay ordinary income taxes on the earnings and you'd pull out the after-tax contributions tax-free. However, if you are executing this mega backdoor Roth strategy, you can actually convert those after-tax 401k contributions to Roth dollars so that when they start growing, they actually grow tax-free as well. So when you go to pull all of those dollars out, they're completely tax-free. So we see a lot of folks who not only can they do the $6,000 Roth IRA backdoor, they can do up to oftentimes $30,000, $35,000 of mega backdoor Roth contributions via their 401k that has this after-tax 401k contribution option.
There are some things you need to think about here, first of all, and we have a nice little diagram. We'll go over a decision-making chart on it, but I also want to make everybody very aware. That's $61,000 that Bo put out there. That's very frothy when you think about that becoming tax-free Roth. But you always have to be careful. You don't want to squeeze that free money out from your employer, because if you have an employer, especially, it's one thing to know what their matching formula is, but if you have an employer that does a variable profit sharing contribution every year, depending upon, you need to be very careful, because especially if there's a lot of variance in what your employer puts in, and if they're very generous, you don't want to, make the decision that you're going to load up that after tax to the point that you squeeze out. Because guess what? If you reach $61,000 and then some of that your employer tries to give more money above $61,000, but because you've already pre-funded the after tax, they just get to keep their money. It just doesn't go into your account. So that's why it's definitely a measure twice, cut once. But here's the other part of this. This is complicated. There is an entire group of questions you have to answer to even know if this strategy works for you.
So we're going to walk through sort of a flow chart you can think about, but this is a prime example. If you're somebody who's thinking about carrying this out, perpetrating this kind of strategy, this is a perfect example of when it makes sense to take the relationship to the next level because it is involved. So here's our little flow chart we put together. Step one, have you maxed out your 401k? If the answer is no, go max out your regular contributions before you think about this strategy. If the answer is yes, then you have to say, okay, am I allowed to make non-Roth, remember Roth is different, after-tax contributions? If the answer is no, you don't have access to this strategy. If the answer is yes, then you have to ask, does this plan allow for in-service distributions or in-service Roth conversions? If the answer is no, all you're able to do is grow tax-deferred dollars, tax-free dollars. So no, the strategy doesn't work. If the answer is yes, if you add up all the contributions to your 401k, are you under the $61,000 limit in 2022? The answer to that is no, you can't do the strategy. The answer is yes, then you can do a mega backdoor. You can see, or if you're listening out there on iTunes or Spotify, this is hairy. This is complicated. This is financial mutant territory. So if you are someone who's thinking about doing this, trying to figure out if this makes sense, we would encourage you to reach out, think about taking the relationship to the next level to make sure that you measure twice and cut once before you put yourself in this kind of strategy.
It's so interesting. When we review plans, I know some of the big auto manufacturers and others that we've looked at and reviewed. When I see these provisions built into the plans, I'm always like, who's the financial mutant that designed this plan? Because somebody knew what they were doing. They structured this just perfectly so their employees, their executives specifically, would have access to this. So it's important for you to kind of use the tools, use the resources we're sharing with you so you understand that these tools might be built into your plan. How do you maximize them? How do you take advantage of them so you're also getting that benefit? That's why we're here creating content. As Bo shared with you, part of the abundance cycle is we'll love on you, give you tons of free advice. But when you start feeling like you need a co-pilot or you've reached a level of success and just you're the CEO now of a 7-figure financial portfolio, you might need to bring in a CFO to help you make those decisions, to ride co-pilot with you. We know that's the abundance cycle. That's why we can love on you for years, knowing that eventually you will graduate. If you're still in that journey, though, I would invite you to go to moneyguy.com/resources. We have tons of free deliverables. Go check that out. And if you want to accelerate, you've heard us talk about the financial order of operations. You've heard us talk about the net worth tool that we use, the spreadsheet that's going to let you have a dashboard. Because it's not just a net worth. It's actually a dashboard so you can track your successes. Use it as a communication tool with your loved ones. I want you to go to learn.moneyguy.com and we have you covered.